Well, today, Brian Sozzi is training those laser eyes on spending, stimulus spending specifically. There we go. Brian, we've been talking about this all show long. We've got a bit of a theme developing here about spending, about where the spending is happening and whether it's happening. And you were looking into some credit card data that already shows us that it's happening.
Yeah, hat tip to the folks at JPMorgan who obviously are tracking this because they have credit and debit cards. So the data they have compiled here showing that consumer spending this month is not just picking up in a big way, perhaps a big way. The numbers here for the last 7 days ended March 19th, spending on Chase cards skyrocketed 23.9%. Now, from January up until the latest round of stimulus checks, those increases were only about 10%. So we're getting a next level of spending here as the new checks arrive directly to the households that needed it. And where the gains are occurring are obviously in supermarkets, wholesale clubs, and discount stores. The biggest increase highlighted in this report is from wholesale clubs and discount stores. So I would take that to be a Costco, a Walmart, or Target. JPMorgan noticing a 23.7% sales increase, and you can see some of those increases in that chart right now on the screen. But I do want to note here, Julie, we recently ran a Yahoo Finance Harris poll, and it continues to show a lot of these households, even though they're getting this in cash infusion, they continue to struggle here financially. That is why, in many respects, they are getting these stimulus checks here. Worth noting, most Americans said in our recent Yahoo Finance Harris poll survey that compared to before the pandemic, their household finances remain unchanged, about 52%. And so you have a lot of households that are getting these checks, and it's not out there. They're not necessarily out there buying footwear and new things to wear out to the restaurants. In many cases, they're just doing it to pay for their daily necessities like food.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and that obviously evident in where they're spending. Although, these stores do have some discretionary items, it's mostly necessities. I'm also really curious, Brian, once we get more insight and more transparency into where this money is going, to our earlier point that we were discussing, how much of it is going to be saved by Americans? Because I think there's, it's really sunk in with people that now that this has happened with the pandemic, now that people went through the financial crisis, this stuff happens, right? And people maybe want to be a little bit more prepared than they were before.
Right. You get this, at least from the data, some of the data we're getting here early on, Julie, it's consumers haven't learned their lesson necessarily. They're out there spending these checks. So they're, by design, they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. Check in, money out into whatever stores. Economic growth picks up in the first half of the year. But to your point, it would be good to save some of this money for a rainy day if households are able to do it. I was thinking back to our editor-in-chief, Andy Sorrell, just talked to Sozzi. She suggested people save their stimulus checks, and that makes a lot of sense.
Not surprised that Sozzi would recommend that. All right.